Well, good afternoon. I think it's afternoon. A little hard not living by time, but living in the present, where you tend not to mark the hours of the day, in order to try and structure what it is that goes on for you, and just allowing things to flow as much as possible. And that can take a little bit of practice, or a lot of practice, depends how willing you are to step out of that old mindset of wearing a watch, perhaps, and not that sometimes I don't wear a watch, but just becoming dependent or being dependent on that idea of structure. So living in the flow and the spontaneous nature of the presentation of life as it shows up. So lesson 169 today: by grace I live, by grace I am released. And living by grace is exactly that. By the grace of God. I have no clue what happens from day to day. I don't know what's in my own best interests. None of that. And if I think I have a plan or an idea about how this day should look, or how it should be orchestrated, or even this moment should look, then I can sort of bet money odds to evens that I'm going to be wrong. And pretty much always going to be wrong, because there is no structure and there is no orchestration of anything, particularly in the presence of the divine within you, which is that element that flows through you automatically when you choose to live by grace. And how would I put this? If you're someone who's never ventured into the realm of spiritual pursuit or anything like that, you'll find that the spiritual world is populated by people who may seem to you to be quite airy-fairy and have no particular plans and don't really care what happens and just allow themselves to go with the flow of things, and that's how it is, and so be it. But you'll come to learn that what may appear airy-fairy at one level is pretty well aligned with a more solid and responsive connection to a higher power that is anything but airy-fairy. But of course, all those things, all things being lessons that God would have me learn, let's say, that takes a minute to wrap your head around that, and it takes a minute to fall into a posture of grace regarding it, or surrender. If you want to call surrender grace, you can, because total surrender is also on the flip side of that total acceptance of a willingness, or total acceptance of an awareness of the necessity for a willingness to be guided from within. So I'll just read this lesson, and then I'm going to flick over to Facebook and do a live one. It's the 2nd of January 2022, according to the chronometers and chronological devices of the world. But of course, in America, it's the 1st of January, so people are waking up to over there their new year, whatever that means to you, and doing lesson 1 of this workbook of A Course in Miracles. I'm reading from the white edition, which is the one with the watermark dove on the front, which you can find online. And the white edition, the workbook, is part B and the text is part A. You need to order both volumes, part A and B, if you're intending on using this message in this form. And the white edition is completely different in its energetic expression than the standard blue book by the Foundation for Inner Peace, or the sparkly book, which was put out by Thetford Foundation, which we're about to do another run of those. So there'll be some coming to America and some here coming to Australia, just organising the final orchestration of that this month, once the Christmas period's gone and everything. So, and just briefly, if you are interested in the white edition has no subtext numerics, no capitalization, no chapterization, and no table of contents, which were all added by Ken Wapnick post authorization of Jesus directly through Helen for Bill to be the one who edits the course, if any editing is to be done. And if you've watched the story of A Course in Miracles, the interview with Ken, you'll be familiar with the bit where he says that he had to go back to Helen to convince her that more editing needed to be done. And of course, history now stands as witness to the fact that it wasn't his actual job given by Jesus to do that. And it's taken quite some effort, divine effort, but effort nonetheless, to void the copyright of the blue book that Ken put on it through the foundation of the Inner Peace, and to bring about the ability to publish the sparkly edition, and which is now this edition, the white edition. But both of those editions are still in print. This one's available only online, and the sparkly will be available online eventually, and also in hard copy in a limited release at the moment. But you can contact myself or Annie Liley and Ted Poppy in the United States, if you're up in that part of the world, on January the 1st. So anyway, here we go. I'm picking up where we left off last year. I started these through the middle of the year. If you want to go back to my YouTube channel, you can find the from lesson 1 that I did there a few years ago, and make your way through with those. My channel is called Awaken Now, and if you're watching this video on Facebook, it'll be from a link from that channel, so you should be able to just like click on the link and you'll be able to scroll and find all the other videos there. I'm not very familiar with how things work on YouTube. I've had somebody recently telling me that my settings are not as beneficial as they could be, but I really don't have any idea about that. So if anybody does have a superior YouTube acumen, I would appreciate some tips. It's nice to be able to get this out as much as possible, because ideas are increased by sharing. So if you're watching this video, please tag others in it and share it on your own page, and make it available. And maybe you're making some of your own videos, doing a kind of a log or a journal as you go along, which is an incredible thing to do, because what you're leaving behind for others who are perhaps not even born yet is a testament to something that you found, employed, and gotten the benefit of, which will be encouragement and example to anyone else who is looking for a better way. So I encourage you to share, to tag, to do whatever you can to help me get this out. And that goes along with anything, particularly in salvation, especially through the auspices of A Course in Miracles, because that's what we've chosen. Right? If you have a more expedient way towards salvation, I'm all ears. But at this stage, I know for a fact that this is the most up-to-date and efficient and most useful, primarily because of the workbook, most useful manuscript for the pursuit of enlightenment, which is what salvation is. So, lesson 169, by grace I live, by grace I'm relieved. Oh, relieved and released. Released and relieved. Grace is an aspect of the love of God which is most like the state prevailing in the unity of truth. It is the world's most lofty aspiration, for it leads beyond the world entirely. It is past learning, yet the goal of learning, for grace cannot come until the mind prepares itself for true acceptance. Okay, and I had somebody write to me the other day. I put up a post about preparation and prepare you now for the end of what never was. And somebody put, how can you prepare for what never was, because it doesn't exist, you know? And you can use those concepts to befuddle yourself and to keep yourself from doing the actual work for millennia if you want to do that. But the bottom line is, Jesus is the head of the Atonement. He channeled this course back to man through Helen Schuckman, and which we're now participating in this moment of joining in that endeavor together. And he says, you know, it is past learning, yet the goal of learning, for grace cannot come until the mind prepares itself for true acceptance. All right? And grace only comes with the recognition of that divine unity. There has to be that moment, that experiential moment wherein the idea of grace, or what grace actually is, dawns upon the mind as an experience. Because until then, until that experience, it gets corrupted by the ego's necessity or desire to preserve itself in your foundation somehow, and it becomes something that gets locked into a state of time rather than timelessness, as an idea of how you think something ought to look, rather than experiencing that something in the here and the now perpetually. Hope that makes sense. So, grace becomes inevitable instantly in those who have prepared a table where it can be gently laid and willingly received, an altar clean and holy for the gift. Grace is acceptance of the love of God within a world of seeming hate and fear. By grace alone, the hate and fear are gone, for grace presents a state so opposite to everything the world contains that those whose minds are lighted by the gift of grace cannot believe the world of fear is real. Grace is not learned. The final step must go beyond all learning. Grace is not the goal this course aspires to attain, yet we prepare for grace in that an open mind can hear the call to awaken. It is not shut tight against God's voice. It has become aware that there are things it does not know, and thus is ready to accept a state completely different from experience with which it is familiarly at home. We have perhaps appeared to contradict our statement that the revelation of the Father and the Son as one has been already set, but we have also said the mind determines when that time will be and has determined it. And yet we urge you to bear witness. To the Word of God, to hasten the experience of truth and speed its advent into every mind which recognizes its effects on you. You ready? Breathe. Allow yourself to receive, that you may give. You don't have to worry how, you don't have to worry when, why, or what, none of those things. Just be willing. Right? There. Ready? Here again. Ready? It's in the moment. It's in this moment. Oneness is simply the idea God is, and in his being, he encompasses all things. No mind holds anything but him. We say God is, and then we cease to speak, for in that knowledge, words are meaningless. I love this bit. There are no lips to speak them, and no part of mind sufficiently distinct to feel that it is now aware of something not itself. It has united with its source, and like its source itself, it merely is. We cannot speak nor write nor even think of this at all. It comes to every mind when total recognition that its will is God's has been completely given and received completely. It returns the mind into the endless present, where the past and future cannot be conceived. The endless present, or the perpetual present, whatever you want to, like it's ongoing. It's completely ongoing. It lies beyond salvation, past all thought of time, forgiveness, and the holy face of Christ. The Son of God has merely disappeared into his Father as his Father has in him. The world has never been at all. Eternity remains a constant state. That's a great joy. The world has never been at all. Eternity remains a constant state. And the paradox of seemingly listening to this video or watching this video in a world that has never been at all is like completely apparent to me. But that's where you have to have the experience. You cannot work it out with your pointy little brain. You have to experience it for yourself. It's like stepping outside the matrix, and then you step back in and you say, hey, wait a minute, the matrix isn't reality. Reality is something else that I just stepped out and experienced. And I'm back here to tell you that this is not reality. So this is beyond experience we try to hasten. Yet forgiveness, taught and learned, brings with it the experiences which bear witness that the time the mind itself determined to abandon all but this is now at hand. We do not hasten it in that what you will offer was concealed from him. Hang on, let me go back. We do not hasten it in that what you will offer was concealed from him who teaches what forgiveness means. All learning was already in his mind, accomplished and complete. He recognized all that time holds, and gave it to all minds that each one might determine from a point where time has ended, when it is released to revelation and eternity. We have repeated several times before that you but make a journey that is done. For oneness must be here. Whatever time the mind has set for revelation is entirely irrelevant to what must be a constant state, forever as it always was, forever to remain as it is now. We merely take the part assigned long since and fully recognize as perfectly fulfilled by him who wrote salvation's script in his Creator's name and in the name of his Creator's Son. We merely take the part assigned long since. It's a choice. I choose to take the part assigned long since time began and time ended. It's in the script that God has made manifest through the Holy Spirit, which is presented through his Son, Jesus Christ, as the idea of atonement or at-one-ment, salvation. Choosing to accept salvation is merely accepting that I'm choosing to accept the script. I'm choosing to accept that part for myself. Having made that choice and having learned the necessity of the importance of staying true to having made that choice, in every temptation that seems to want to cross my path, good, bad, or indifferent, I can tell you that it's a choice that you can't make lightly. It's made with light, in light, but not lightly. There has to be a total integrity with that choice, or it'll just get lost amid the flotsam and jetsam of thinking that came from yesterday, and you might remember it tomorrow. You have to remember it. It's like one of those things. This is a course in remembering, right? We are remembering our purpose, which is salvation, through every choice we make, and remembering also why we are making that choice. There is no other choice. We have repeated several times before that you but make a journey that is done, for forgiveness, for oneness must be here. Whatever time the mind has set for revelation is entirely irrelevant to what must be a constant state, forever as it always was, forever to remain as it is now. We merely take the part assigned long since and fully recognize as perfectly fulfilled by him who wrote salvation's script in his Creator's name and in the name of his Creator's Son, which is you. There is no need to further clarify what no one in the world can understand. Well, I actually understand it, having had the experience of the illumination of my mind and fully aware of the nature of the Father and the Son being one, but yet still finding myself seemingly back here in time before that experience happened. I can tell you that there are one or two of us who do fully understand what that means. And I'm glad to be able to say that. I read a lot of things on Facebook and other social media and Instagram, not so much Instagram, but more Facebook on my page there, where people debate the worthiness of the statement or the unworthiness of the statement of those people who claim themselves to be enlightened. And I'm telling you, if you can claim yourself to be enlightened, you are, because you are. Whether you've actually experienced that or not yet in your own mind doesn't matter. You are, because you're experiencing the journey that's already over. You've done this. Within my framework of the dreaming, having had an experience of the illumination of my mind in 1997, I know that I'm back in the experience of my idea of separation, transiting through the residual processing of karma, which we call healing through forgiveness, in order to bring that experience to bear as the omega point, let's say, or the collapse of the alpha and the omega point together in my own consciousness, in my own association with myself. That's happening with you also, along with me, because healing is always shared. It doesn't matter who seems to be ahead a little, or who seems to be behind, who's just picking this up for the very first time, or who's been reading it for 50 years, or however long it's been in publication, 1975, whatever that is since then. But the fix is in. You've done this because you're simply accepting to play your part in something that is already accomplished through him. It's got to be good news. You can get frustrated with it from time to time, and but it doesn't mean that you can forget what your purpose is now, because we're here together reminding each other that our purpose is to forgive ourselves for our thoughts about the temporal, and exchange them lovingly and with gratitude for the recollection of our truth, which is divine and is held in a sphere of grace, awaiting but our acceptance of it. Okay. There is no need to further clarify what no one in the world can understand. When revelation of your oneness comes, it will be known and fully understood. Now we have work to do, okay? Now we have work to do. All of you who get to the part where it says, I need do nothing, and think, oh, that's it, I'll put the book away, I don't need to do anything. Now we have work to do, all right? The doing nothing is allowing for the light to do the work through you. You have to learn how to allow that to occur. In that, truly, you are doing nothing. The light does everything. But it requires still your willingness, and your willingness to understand where it is that your ego is putting itself in place of your own best interests. Otherwise, you're going to go around in circles, just sprouting off a load of spiritual mumbo jumbo, and nothing will change for you. Now we have work to do, for those in time can speak of things beyond and listen to words which explain what is to come is past already, such as now. Yet what meaning can the words convey to those who count the hours still and rise and work and go to sleep by them? There we go. I think I opened this lesson with that very statement. But there is only one mind. It's so beautiful, really so beautiful. Suffice it then that you have work to do to play your part. The ending must remain obscure to you until your part is done. It does not matter, for your part is still what all the rest depends on. As you take the role assigned to you, salvation comes a little nearer each uncertain heart that does not beat as yet in tune with God. Forgiveness is the central theme which runs throughout salvation. Holding all its parts in meaningful relationships, the course it runs directed and its outcomes sure. And now we ask for grace, the final gift salvation can bestow. Experience that grace provides will end in time, for grace foreshadows heaven, yet does not replace the thought of time, but for a little while. The interval suffices. And if you've been following along with what I've been saying about my own particular association, this is my interval, and it does suffice. It is here that miracles are laid to be returned by you from holy instants you receive, through grace in your experience to all who see the light that lingers on your face. You ready? I love you. What is the face of Christ but his who went a moment into timelessness, and brought a clear reflection of the unity he felt an instant back to bless the world. Holy cow. I tend to forget the perfection that is written within these pages that reflects upon the reading of it, the nature of my own assignment, my own atonement, as it would with yours as well. I tend to forget how insightful and how pertinent and how perfect it is. It is perfect. What is the face of Christ but his who went a moment into timelessness and brought a clear reflection of the unity he felt an instant back to bless the world? How could you finally attain to it forever while a part of you remains outside, unknowing, unawakened, and in need of you as witness to the truth? I'm standing here as witness to the truth. I'm telling you the Father and the Son are one. God is a fact. There is no world because God is formless and creates formlessly in its own likeness. God knows not of the world. Breathe. Allow whatever that represents in you to be represented so that the Holy Spirit can show you the truth of the nature of it, and not so that you can try to work it out with your pointy brain. Okay, that's only ever gotten you more pointy brain workings. Be grateful to return as you were glad to go an instant. Holy cow, I was glad to go an instant. Be grateful to return as you were glad to go an instant and accept the gifts that grace provided you. You carry them back to yourself, and revelation stands not far behind. Its coming is ensured. We ask for grace and for experience that comes from grace. We welcome the release it offers everyone. We do not ask for the unaskable. We do not look beyond what grace can give, for this we can give in the grace that has been given us. Our learning goal today does not exceed this prayer, yet in the world, what could be more than what we ask this day of him who gives the grace we ask as it was given him? By grace I live, by grace I am released, by grace I give, by grace I will release. Peace.